and this meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District will now come to order for this third Thursday of September, the 16th, 2021. Will the Vice Chair please call roll?
Sure. John Arnold. Ryan Conway. Rondi Cox, present. Lily Kleinlein. Lauren Cott. Andrew Manley.
Present.
Nelson Schaefer. Paul White.
Here.
Morning Wilder.
Here.
Joe Winia.
Here.
5 present. We do not have quorum.
Okay. Well, I think we will still go ahead and proceed with the reports that we have. And actually, I'm sorry, we can go ahead. Well, I guess we can't adopt the agenda without a quorum. So we can we can go ahead with the proposed agenda if there's no opposition, since we won't be taking any final action anyway. Is there any opposition? All right, I will close that. And we can go ahead and forego the meeting minute approval and go ahead to report from the district if you're willing, Tom.
Well, not a whole lot to update. I assume everybody is aware that the board did adopt the solid waste management plan at their meeting last Thursday, so that is in place. I haven't done a whole lot with it in a week, but but we do have it adopted, and I guess from my perspective, kind of related to that, the budget was presented as approved by our board, presented to the county council. They did accept the budget as presented, so it is scheduled for its first reading and public hearing on October the 4th, and second reading and adoption on October 17th, I believe. That date may not be correct, but within a day or two. Apologize, I don't know that off the top of my head, but the council didn't have a whole lot of questions about any of the increases or decreases in the budget from this year and into next year. Did have some questions on the plan, and what that means for us. Just it's kind of described it as a playbook. It gives the district a playbook for the next 5 years and a path to follow, or try to follow, to move forward. So I have gone ahead and initiated some discussions with Lee Baker in the county attorney's office to get him started on looking at the process, the procedures that we need to go through to look at implementing a waste tire program that is budgeted in the budget next year. And given the process that's in the statute to follow, I thought it was prudent. We just probably should go ahead and start moving forward with that because it's going to take some time. There's potentially some public hearings involved if any of the businesses that are currently doing waste tires have questions, concerns, issues with us doing a waste tire program. So I don't know what to expect from them. Have not talked with specifically with any of them about the waste tire program and the possibility of the district doing one. We just know from the tires involved in illegal dump complaints and calls we get from residents not sure what to do with used tires and having trouble finding a shop that'll take them. There does appear to be a need for that. So that's why that was something that was looked at, proposed for next year's budget, and we'll see what happens as we go through that process. So yeah, other than that, I think, more specific to the plan, obviously we all recognize going through that, but outreach and education is a major component of about every facet of that plan. Elise has been on vacation, just got back on Monday, so she actually wasn't here as we went through the final revisions of the plan and the adoption by the board. So so she's reading through it all, and I've asked her to read through it all and start to look and consider what kinds of things, new things, changes to existing programs, and our outreach advertising efforts that we need to look at doing to start to move in the direction of the goals and objectives that are outlined in that plan. So, and I don't anticipate that it is something that staff will do autonomously. I think the board and the CAC will be involved in the efforts to make whatever changes are needed, or implement new programs or new messages, new advertising campaigns that we decide to do moving forward. I anticipate involvement from everybody that was involved putting the plan together. So, but other than that, we are trying to finalize getting our budget adopted, and staff's already starting to look toward year-end requirements, reporting, and things that we need to do to wrap up the end of the year, because that time's approaching for us as well.
Great, thank you, Tom. Are there any questions on the report? All right, seeing none, I will move on to the chair report, which is pretty much, I'd only intended to mention about the plan adoption by the board, which Tom covered, and just that was a great next step to follow all the work that went into it. And as Isabel Piedmont Smith mentioned very aptly at the end of the meeting in comments, that this kind of marks the start of the process more than the end of it. And so I thought that was a good observation to keep in mind, that now we begin work on all of the things that we defined would be worked on. So I think that's exciting, and I'm looking forward to be involved on the behalf of the CAC. So I know there's not really any content that could be questioned in that report, but if anybody has any questions that I can field, that was a great time.
I have a question. This is a little out of order. I apologize. This is for Tom. Tom, have you submitted to IDEM yet? Do you plan to, or what's the timeline on that?
I have not done it yet. Do plan to do that. Did not get. Like I said, I've been out. I'm sorry. I've been out of the office yesterday afternoon and today, and I'm out tomorrow, and it just wasn't something I was able to get to Monday or Tuesday. But yeah, we talked about that with the executive committee, and I think there's the consensus amongst them to go ahead and follow through with the process that's shown in the statute and submit it to IDEM. That will happen.
I can't wait to hear internally how that's dealt with.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, that concludes the reports portion. We don't have any other items apart from new business, and we can, let's see. Paul, did you have any information to present on the Hilly 500 involvement for the CAC?
Well, the only information that I have is that I dropped the ball and didn't get it done. I was considering what Rondi was telling us after I had posed the thought about it's just a participant thing where they've got their water bottles that they carry with them, and I thought there was lots of participation. Spectator participation, and evidently there is not, and so that takes away a lot of the focus for things that are going to be disposed. So it's probably not as urgent of a thing as what I thought it was. And like I said, I dropped the ball. I just didn't get it done like I wanted to.
All right. Well, I will note that if that's something that you want to pursue for the next meeting, we can add that as an agenda item then. And if not, you can feel free to let me know at any time, or anyone, if there's an agenda item that you would like to add to discuss.
Yeah, just a note that Hilly 100, I think will already have happened by the time we get to our next meeting, but we could always certainly talk about for next year to have time to plan it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Rondi.
I apologize. I realized that I named it the Hilly 500. I guess it's not that long.
Yeah. It's at least 500 pedal strokes.
At least, thank you. And I had also, let's see, that concludes that agenda item. I had also wanted to add another, which would be the signatures for the resolution 2021-01 for electronic attendance. And I know that as of my visit, when I had signed it, I think about 2 weeks ago, there were no other signatures present. And I know there aren't many of us here, but I just wanted to follow up to see if there are any hurdles to preventing getting those signed, or if there's a timeline that we can set as an expectation for when to get those signed.
The only hurdle so far has been my memory, so I'm literally going to put it on my calendar right now to do it. So my apologies. Tom, is tomorrow a good day?
I mean, it is. I won't be there, and Connie's actually out, but Elisa will be there, and it's the resolution is just in a folder at the front desk.
Oh, okay. All
I mean,
right.
she knows who you are, so if you just.
Well, when I went in there today to sign it, they couldn't find it.
Sorry, Paul. It's sitting in a manila file folder right by the phone.
Well, when are you going to be in, Tom? I can just.
I'll be back in on Monday.
Okay. I'm putting it on my calendar for Monday.
I mean, and then that's well, Paul, thanks for trying to come in. Sorry they couldn't find it.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
And Andrew would be the only other one that has signed it. And I mean, as far as a timeline, I mean, obviously it's something that needs to get done, and the sooner the better. But until we get into a situation, where that resolution applies, it's not critical that it's signed. I don't know. I mean, my hope would be that given everything that's going on, I hope nobody would take us to task over pursuing under the terms, the rules established in that resolution, given that we have a recording of the meeting, we have a recording of the vote proving that it passed, and same circumstances that require us to make that resolution are creating obstacles to getting signatures done in a timely fashion. So I'm not overly concerned, but I mean, yeah, but we do need to get the signatures on it. I have lots of resolutions I need to get board signatures on. So.
Well, till the county commissioners set to where we can meet in person again anyway, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue.
Right, and that's what I say. Until we're in a situation where what's described in the resolution would apply, it's kind of moot.
Yeah.
But and again, I don't think we would be taken to task if we didn't have all the necessary signatures on it and did have to have a hybrid meeting, which is really what it addresses. But if we can get it done and not have to worry about it, that would be nice.
Agreed. And Andrew and Morning, I saw you were both unmuting. Did either of you have something you wanted to mention?
I was just going to say that I had also forgotten, so I will put that on my to-do list as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Mine was on accident.
Yeah. And I'll try to get back in there this next week to get it done.
Okay, well, I'll be in next week, and if if tomorrow works for anybody, I'll call Elisa in the morning and let her know that it is there and where it is, and make sure she find it. So if somebody goes in, she knows where it is.
Great. Thank you, Tom, for coordinating that as well. Yes, apologies, Paul, for your missed
Yeah.
trip. But extra visits. to
No,
the
what, it
district
wasn't a
office.
wasted trip. I got to see that the gates were open and everything was working smoothly.
Good,
How's that?
good. Yes, no trip to the district office is wasted. And so that concludes that item. The last new business item that was planned for discussion is the CAC bylaws. That's something we can undertake informally now in terms of visiting or just discussing the content. I will note that I prepared a couple of documents that I will put in the chat that have the first link. I'm sorry, the first link is actually just the code related to the definition of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And the second is a document that I put together, just a working document in a Dropbox paper file, starting with an outline. So just to, I think, hone in on all the information that is essential, because the existing draft had some redundancies and some, I think, misses from the statute that defines the CAC. So I thought, I guess it's, in my opinion, best to start with just a not blank slate, but a structure, a skeletal structure. And then in addition to that structure, I've included all of the statutory information lower down in that same working document, which I can screen share if that's helpful to anyone. Or you can access it by visiting the link if you want to take a moment to review it now or have any discussion on it. Also open up the floor if there was anyone else who was able to review any of the other bylaws or had any thoughts on the current CAC draft as well.
I have, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, I'm not very familiar with bylaws. Is there anything that you think is severely lacking in the original draft? As far as what you've already outlined here in this document you shared with us?
Right. To be to the point, I didn't scrutinize it for severely lacking. I just saw the format and the organization and the, I guess, datedness of it led me to feel moved to just revisit sort of what this body considers essential beyond what the statutory content is.
Dated? Come on, it's only 4.5 years and it wasn't even a finished product.
Well, the reason I thought it was dated was because in the signature line at the end, it said 200_ for the year. So it's been at least 11 years, I think, since it was composed, unless that was an error.
I think the draft version I gave you a draft version, right? I think that was
Yes.
from 16 or 17.
That's-
But it never got to a point that we had a document to give to the CAC to vote on, I don't believe.
Okay. Yeah, it is that very document, if I'm not mistaken. That's in the CAC folder under bylaws. It's CAC bylaws draft 1. And at the end of it it says adoption on the day of 2000 single digit year. So it wasn't even in the teens.
Well, you know. And then as I was sitting here getting ready for the meeting, I saw some of the emails, the notes come through about the bylaws. So I did see your question about membership stuff. So Joe, I did just email you at the start of the meeting, the resolution 90-1, which is the establishing the CAC.
Okay, great. Yeah, there was one item that I learned that I thought was a little bit curious, is that it's up to the board to define the purpose of the CAC and the terms of membership. So I'm guessing those things will be inside this document then.
Oh, don't assume anything now.
Well, I will at least speak in there.
I know
Search
it
for them.
says, I know it does, terms expire at the end of each year. That's why December or January, the board has to vote to reappoint the CAC membership. I'd have to go back and pull it back up to see if it has specific language or things in there regarding the purpose and scope of the body. That I don't recall. But we can get it up. But at any rate, you have that, so.
Yes, thank you.
And then I would just say, just, you know, in looking at, you know, what I saw in there, and I'm trying to think, I thought, Joe, I thought somewhere in there you had a note about just following down through the statute and trying to make the bylaws match, you know, the statutory requirements and stuff of the body. And I think that's, I mean, that's the way to start. That's where you get your, you know, your outline, your body of your document, and then you can, you know, tweak it as you want or need to, at least within the limits established by the statute. So.
Yeah, the statute has, I think, little about typical bylaw content, at least in the way of like election process and positions, officer positions, and meeting requirements or meeting expectations.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it doesn't put any stringent rules or requirements, you know, on that stuff. But that's also an area that it gives you some latitude, you know, to do those things, you know, provided that our board doesn't object to them. And I don't know that you guys would go so far out of bounds that the board would balk at things. So, you know, you just can't put anything in there that you're going to adopt the budget, because statutes say that somebody else does that.
One item I would like to potentially request to put in there is maybe a participation policy, like a certain amount of meetings missed is grounds for, I don't know, removal, if possible.
Rondi, do you recall, has that not been discussed before?
We had talked about it, but at the time there seemed to be some interest in adjusting the bylaws, and then kind of just the interest faded. And so we didn't really finalize anything, but I think that was one of the reasons why the bylaws came up, was because of slacking attendance. So.
Yeah, no, and the one thing I would throw in with that, because the board makes the appointments, you know, you can put your rules in there, but you know, the CAC as its own body, I'm not sure that you can kick somebody out. I think the board has to do that.
Well, we could say that after a certain number of misses, we would recommend to the board.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Or is there a way, I think I've seen this in other things, like inactive membership versus active membership?
So we have an inactive membership in the bylaws, but I don't know that because that's a draft, I don't know if it was actually approved, but we have used the inactive status before.
Yeah,
I had been inactive myself and placed myself on an inactive status because I was unable to make meetings. And actually, I'm told that I was the first one who ever came off inactive and came active again.
That's correct.
Tommy, you were going to say?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that was, I mean, that the active inactive status was something that came up. It's been 4 or 5 years ago, you know, but we had some members that were having some personal or some health issues that were limiting their meeting availability and having trouble establishing a quorum. The thought being that if we identified the members that were, you know, temporarily indefinitely unable to attend meetings as inactive, we didn't have to count them toward a quorum. And I don't remember exactly.
That's exactly why we did it.
Yeah, and I don't know, legally how that all got figured out, that, we've got 12 members, 3 are inactive, so 5 votes carries the day. I don't remember all of that, but that's what we did, and the business at hand moved forward, and at this point, that need no longer exists.
What we wanted to avoid when we were doing the inactive membership option was people just saying, I'm gonna be inactive for the next 2 months or something, just because they have to miss 2 meetings.
Right.
It would be kind of back and forth, back and forth.
And the active inactive status would, if that's something that you want to consider continuing to include, and when it comes to setting up rules or an attendance policy, is something you got to figure out.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, that's a good thing to bring up, and I think that will probably require a fuller attended meeting to discuss, but I think it worth at least maybe drafting some language around it as content to discuss. That's something I could take an initial approach to.
I guess I might even suggest, I mean, for the purposes of getting a draft together and, something to start working from, put in there what you guys want or what you think would be the right thing. I mean, I'll have Lee Baker review it, make sure that we're in line with everything, and he'll tell us, oh, can't do that. If we cross a line, he'll just say, take that one out. So.
That would
Or
be
amended
helpful.
such and such.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just, I wouldn't worry about, some of that, the technical nitty gritty, the detailed about, are we in compliance or not? Put down what you want it to be, and we'll let the attorneys tell us if that's allowed or not.
I need to get going. Thank you for the meeting, and I'll see you all later.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Maureen. To your remark, Andrew, I added an item I had added under membership, the membership section and expectations. So I added attendance as a subpoint to expectations.
And I think it would be nice too to have all of this done, and then that way, when somebody does express interest in joining, okay, here's what's expected of you. Here's what's required of you to be a member of this group.
Right. I agree very strongly with the importance of having regular attendance and contribution for it to be a meaningful membership. And I can see how the inactivity would have value if we aren't in control of members able to attend and are trying to avoid a situation of not being blocked by insufficient quorum numbers. But I think that exactly the proposals that were made about recommendations to the board and having language in the bylaws for navigating that would be adequate. Were there any other thoughts on at least I guess, first of all, the approach that I proposed in terms of going for a new outline rather than from the previous draft, but then also the contents of that outline, if we do pursue that as a framework for a new draft.
Your outline's really thorough and good. I think, yeah, we should work from that and then maybe take some inspiration from the bylaws draft if needed for certain sections.
I agree.
Great. And I'll note that there were a couple of items from other bylaws that I took a look at and just some general searching on valuable things to define. That's where those items came from.
Did you look at those few examples I included? I thought some of those might be applicable, but the Jefferson County, the Manassas.
Oh, I did not yet. No, I saw those had appeared and I didn't have the chance to review them all. But since this is just an outline, I think that will still be a good reference.
Yeah, so there's two CACs. I don't remember if they were related to solid waste or not. And then there was an actual solid waste advisory committee too, so.
Okay. Were there any particular items within them that you found of value?
It's been like 2 months. I honestly can't remember. But some of these are rather brief.
The Jefferson County one does address the absences like you talked about, and it has a similar, kind of like what we discussed, that those with unexcused absences may be recommended to the board for removal. So really just what we just talked about. So that might be good language to use.
Which one was that again?
Jefferson County.
Okay. Maybe that's, I think, where I saw it originally. Yeah, no, I like that. And then, but then an option for inactive membership too, because, you know, people's lives are hectic and we still want them to be able to contribute when they can.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think with conditions specified, that could be a useful tool to avoid to try to avoid the abuses of it that could potentially occur.
Well, I'm not sure that my life's hectic, but I know I have to do an awful lot of running around all day long. That's a joke.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes all of the business originally slated for discussion. And again, without quorum, unable to do any final actions, but is there anything else of interest to discuss while we're present?
I've never taken minutes for a meeting that doesn't have quorum. How does that work? Do I need to make minutes, or are they just always going to be unapproved, or what do you think?
For like the minutes for this meeting,
Yeah.
You should go ahead and prepare the minutes just as you would normally do, and just the attendance at the top will indicate that there was not a quorum present.
Okay.
No official business was conducted, but
This is what we discussed.
we still had a discussion, and items from that discussion may may sway or have an impact on future decisions. So we should still make the minutes and note that we did meet, even if without a quorum, and had a discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
And it will also make the content of our discussion available to absent members. All right, well, that concludes new business then, unless there are any other items on this opportunity. And seeing none, that would bring us to public comment, which I see there are no members of the public present for. We can go ahead with the good of the order if anyone has anything to mention. And if not, I will remind everyone present that our next regular meeting is Thursday, October 21 at 5:15 p.m. As usual, either at the Nat U Hill courtroom, if it happens to be in person, or virtual if the orders are extended. And it will be announced in the next, or it will be indicated in the next meeting announcement. And that brings us to adjournment. So if there's no objection, the meeting will adjourn. And seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you to everyone who attended and for your contributions.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Have a
Bye,
good night.
everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Yep.